So by now you should have figured out how to import images into your Photopea projects by going File, Open, and Place, and then using like just the Lasso Select tool to draw a quick selection around a subject, copying that selection from a layer, pasting it onto a new layer, and then deleting the original. So that's one way to really start collaging and making digital collages in Photopea. If you haven't figured out that stuff by now, go back and watch the last video and get to that point. But for those of you that are ready for something a little bit more challenging, I'm going to give you a couple other ways of importing images and then using a different lasso tool to select and collage. So first of all, we're going to import images not by going File, Open, and Place, but going to Open More and then Open from a URL. So we're just going to grab the URL of a specific image and then paste it by going here. So here we go. You go to Google, find like an image that you'll want to work with. Let's say this one. All right, and then you want the URL of just this image. So what I do is I hit Control and then click to get this menu to pop up, and where it says copy image address, that's the fast way to do it, but that's the URL of just the image. You could also go open image in a new tab. That's going to open just the image in a new tab, and this is the URL. That's the address of just the image. Whereas if you like actually click on the image itself, it'll take you to a website from that image is on. You don't want the whole website. You want a specific image address. This is the URL right here. So I'm going to select all of it and then Command X to cut it, right? Or copy it. And then back in Photopea, I'm going Open More, Open from URL. And I'm pasting it in, Command V. And hopefully it'll load. Yep, there's my image and it's pasted in as its own layer. Boom, I'm gonna show you that one more time. Not a website, but an image. Scroll through Google and find one that you want to use, and then control click or right click to bring up this menu, and where it says copy image address, that's what you want. Copy image address, go back to Photopea, and then File, Open More, Open from a URL, paste it, and then you do want current project. If you hit new project, it's gonna pop in as its own like project in Photopea. You want current project, so it does that instead of if you go open from URL and then hit new project, it'll open it in its own tab. You don't want that. So anyways, you can get images into Photopea just by grabbing their URL from Google. So that should be not terribly difficult and actually make your life a little bit easier now. But here's another thing that you should be able to do is to use the magnetic lasso tool. So be patient with this. It can be frustrating. You'll learn how to use it the more you do it. Just give it a try. So the magnetic lasso tool will try to stick to contrasting areas or like edges. So I just clicked once with the magnetic lasso tool and I'm just kind of hovering around the subject, and you can see it's doing like pretty well. Sometimes it wants to do a good job, and other times, like in that shoulder area over there, it wanted to cut off a bunch of areas, but it's actually just sticking. Like I'm not even clicking, although I can actually click and add anchor points. So if it's ever not doing what you want, you can make it do what you want by clicking, or if it's like making these anchor points where you don't want them, just hit delete and you can reverse them or go back in time. Like if I wanted to go all the way back, I just hit delete, 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 delete. Of course I don't need to do this, but like the shoulder area didn't really get selected all that well, so I'm gonna go and when I'm hovering over them, just click to add the anchor points. All right, so now it's doing a good job. Again, it's going to pick up like contrast between pixels. So if you have something with a busy background, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. It's not going to know exactly what to stick to. But if you have something that's on like a plain colored background, should be pretty easy. And then double click to complete this selection. That's my whole selection. Of course, you know, if you want to get nitpicky and get in here and like change these things, like you get this little part of the background removed, you can always use these tools, unite and subtract. You can also like switch back to like the regular lasso tool. And let's see, I'm going to subtract this part, subtract that part, or unite, add to that part, little boy's collar. Oh, I got a little bit of the background right here, subtract, boom, and this little thing right here. And maybe I need to like add a tiny little bit of this. So anyways, yeah, that's the magnetic lasso tool. Works very similar to the regular lasso tool, but it's sticking to contrasting edges. So once you have your selection, same thing, Command C or edit copy, edit paste, and now I have this little boy on its own layer, and I can transform him, put him in my collage, rotate it maybe a tiny little bit, right? So again, what I just showed you was importing images by going open more from a URL and then pasting in a URL. And then I showed you the magnetic lasso tool to select your images just like you would with a regular lasso tool. But here's a good example. Like I did this one, this little girl with the regular lasso tool. Where'd she go? Right here. But I had to like roughly bubble cut around her, whereas the magnetic lasso tool did a pretty good job at like sticking right to the edges of my subject.